Sandy, I think we might kick this off if you're happy to do that. I'll just do a little welcome to everyone who's dialing in for this online training program with Sandy, the wonderful Sandy. I'm Virginia Birrell, the CEO of ACBC Victoria. Sandy, I've known for many years. She's a highly experienced presenter in the areas of workplace practice and mental health. And the unique thing about Sandy is her journey is both professional and personal. So she has unique insights, which I'm sure will be very, very relevant to all of us working at home today during the current situation that we're in. We're pleased to be able to support you through this what is a difficult journey for many people. I hope today's session will give you a lot of positive tactics, and you will end up with a personal strategy to help you get through this. You can ask questions of Sandy during the session. If you just go to the bottom of your screen, up will pop the Q&A panel. If you just type in a question there, Madison, who is monitoring this, will then ask the questions of Sandy. So without further ado, Sandy, please take it away.
Right, thank you, Virginia. And you give me such a good rap. Thank you so much. Virginia alluded to my professional and personal experience with issues to do with mental health. I have lived experience of anxiety and depression. I sadly, sad to tell you, my brother suicided many years ago, and I have another close family member who's got significant mental health issues. I have been trained by Beyond Blue. I'm part of their Speakers and Ambassadors Bureau, and I have a mental health first aid qualification. Having said all that, I am not a clinician. So I will share information with you today about what well-researched studies have shown us, and I will also share with you some of the things I do to manage my mental health. I'd love you to, you know the old saying, try before you buy? Well, I'd like you to try before you sigh. I'm going to show you some strategies and ideas that you might go, oh, she's got to be kidding. Please, please try them first. And if they don't work for you, throw them away and pick up some other ideas. I do want to say today's jam-packed with information. I'll be going fairly quickly. The slides won't be available afterwards, so I encourage you to have pen and paper and take notes as we go. So in this session today, we're going to be looking at a whole range of things, including how to create certainty and control for yourself, how to stay focused on the present moment, and I'll talk about exercise, how to stay connected with people, and more than just, oh, okay, I'll have a video call on Messenger or Facebook. How do we balance the current reality with still allowing our minds to entertain possibilities? The culmination of this session is to enable you to put together your own personal mental health plan. So I'm going to spend the bulk of the time talking about that plan and showing you what it can look like. And I also want to make sure you're all comfortable in how you can ask for help if you need it, and where can you ask for help. I don't know about you, but I'm still scratching my head saying, how did all this happen? I mean, it seems like only minutes ago we were in these happy in-person work environments. And now we have a country, in fact, possibly a world, that is riddled with worry and anxiety. In fact, recent research that's just come out over the weekend has suggested that they're expecting mental health conditions or reporting of mental health conditions to go up by 40% during the next several months. So I am a great believer in an ounce of prevention is definitely worth a pound of cure. And that's what today is all about. I'm going to suggest that you maybe make some changes in the way you do some things or the way you think about some things. And I don't have a crystal ball, just as no one else has a crystal ball, to talk about how long will this go on. And that's part of the uncertainty for us. So what I want to do is really look at right here, right now. And the first thing I'd like to share with you is a model from a dear colleague of mine. His name is Gary Edwards. You'll see his name at the bottom of this slide. Do look him up on LinkedIn, connect with him. He is a very clever and insightful man. Now, he doesn't have any expertise in mental health per se, but he has huge expertise in change management and helping organizations drive change effectively. And he came up with this model, which he shared with me. And he said, you know, Sandy, based on people's certainty about things and people's ability to control things, People derive comfort from that. We become comfortable because we have this foundation of certainty and control. But of course, right now, where's the certainty and where's the control, which of course leaves us feeling quite uncomfortable. So he said, I think here's what we need to help people with, Sandi. Rather than chase the certainty which isn't there, let's look for clarity. Let's see if we can help people, each other, ourselves, have some clarity about our situation at the moment. And rather than control, can we create choices? And I'm going to give you a lot of choices today of things you can do to manage your mental health really well. And from that clarity and those choices, rather than looking for, I want to be totally comfortable, I'd encourage you to look for, I want to be confident. I want to feel confident in what my next steps are. So thanks to Gary Edwards, do look him up on LinkedIn. I think that's a fabulous model for all of us to have in our minds at the moment. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the work of Stephen Covey. And this is in relation to how do we create some level of clarity and choices as opposed to certainty and control. Stephen Covey talks about the fact that we all have a circle of concern. It's like this big basketball of things that are on our mind and worrying us. And those of you that were with us last week will remember this slide, because in that circle of concern are innumerable things that are worrying to us, and yet we have no control over them whatsoever. And what Stephen Covey taught us, and you can read more about this in his book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is that we must focus on our circle of control. Because when we take action about those things we can control, our sense of calm and our feeling of being capable and able to be proactive is naturally buoyed. It's naturally strengthened. So one activity I have to suggest for you is after this session today, make up a list, get a piece of paper, maybe draw a line down the middle. And on one side say, things I'm concerned about. And just go for it. Just dump it all out on the paper. Because it's interesting how sometimes when we get it out of our head onto the paper, it actually takes some of the emotion out of it for us as well. And then on the right-hand column, look at, well, what can I control? And there'll be lots of things there that you can control. So that's your first activity that I would encourage you to do. Here's another one. In terms of helping us focus on now, the present moment, I know this is something you've possibly heard many times. It really works. The thing is, we've got all these chemicals raging through our bodies and minds at one time. And when we're starting to get worried or anxious, of course, the adrenaline goes up. And we want to dilute that adrenaline to feel more calm. So as you breathe in slowly through your nose and then breathe out slowly through your mouth, if you do that 3 times, I promise you, absolutely guaranteed, you will feel more calm. Now, when I talk about going out and looking in your garden, I'm talking about going out and looking at every plant, every flower, smell them. Close your eyes and smell them. You might say, oh, Sandi's sounding a bit loony right now. But all of these are things that will help you keep focused and grounded right now. A lot of what changes our mental well-being is the racing of our minds and the chemicals that it produces in our bodies. So all of these activities will slow all that down and dilute those chemicals. The final thing is I'm going to share with you my own, this is my quote, my mantra. My mantra, I've been now isolated for, I think, 4 weeks. And I know that my mind has been racing. So I say, Sandi, focus on today, plan for a week. And sometimes I say plan only for a week. Now, in business, that's not normally what we do. In our lives, that's not what we normally do. I think it can be very helpful right now because things are happening and changing so quickly. I think talking to Virginia and Madison before we started today, we all kind of said, oh, it is Tuesday, isn't it? Because we're losing track of even what day it is. So focus on today and plan only for a week. Finally, I want to share with you a saying that I learned from mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness. Now, many of you have probably heard of that, and some people think, "Oh, that's meditation, isn't it?" Really, mindfulness is about being present, focused, and being mindful of what you're doing at the moment. For instance, when did we last sit and eat a meal on our own or with others, but in silence for even a few minutes, and really taste the food, really taste what we were eating? And if we stop and reflect, how many meals have I had in the last several weeks where I just ate it and then that was it? So my favorite saying is to be where your feet are. I love that saying. And I promise you, again, this is something I do frequently, have done for the past 2-3 years, which have presented several challenges to me. And when I'd find myself in a place that would otherwise be enjoyable for me, say at a concert somewhere, and my mind started to go, oh, yes, I've got to remember to do the bath, and yes, oh, gee, I've got enough fresh veggies in the fridge. If I'm sitting enjoying a concert, thinking about the bass and the veggies is really not smart. So be where your feet are. Make a little post-it note or a big A4 sign for yourself, or several, and put them up around your home. And remember to be where your feet are. Now, I want to talk to you about these chemicals I've referred to, the happy chemicals we have in our bodies that create happiness. There's dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Now, we've possibly heard about all these, but what I want to share with you today is how we can increase the levels of these happy chemicals in our body and what not having these chemicals in our body can create in terms of our health and particularly our mental well-being. We'll start with dopamine. Now, dopamine is the chemical that actually motivates us to take action to achieve goals. It's a pull us forward kind of chemical, if you like. And lack of dopamine causes things like procrastination, self-doubt, and even lack of enthusiasm. So how do we get the dopamine going more for us right now? Well, one of the things I'd suggest is, I'm sure you've got a lot of goals or tasks or even ideas about projects you could be doing at this time. And I suggest that you chunk them down or break them down in really small tasks, so that after you can tick each one off the list, even if you're not necessarily, you wouldn't do this necessarily normally, and you're not a to-do list kind of person, but as you cross it off the list, it's like you've got a little finish line that you've crossed. And what that does is create dopamine starting to flow more readily through your body that goes, oh, let's go get the next one. Now, I've got the word celebrate there. So we've got to, as in the former days, I'd say something like, yeah, so treat yourself out to, brunch on Sunday. Not possible now. So another thing you could do is create a list of what are all the ways I can celebrate my achievements, all the finish lines I cross at the moment. And it might be sitting in the sun. It might be taking time to do a crossword or Sudoku, or it might be picking up the phone and talking to someone for a while. But create lots of little finish lines. And remember, plan your next goal before this one's finished, because you don't want to get to the end of this project and go, oh, now what? They call that a dopamine hangover. And so make sure you constantly have a list of things that you're aiming to achieve. Now, that's got to be balanced with flexibility and self-compassion. So, for instance, I don't want any of you getting a big whip out and beating yourself up for going, oh, I only got 2 tasks done today, or I only took 1 step on that project, because that's not going to help us either. So that's dopamine. Let's talk about serotonin. Serotonin is a chemical that helps us feel significant or important, even a sense of belonging, if you like. And lack of serotonin can cause feelings of loneliness and even clinical depression. In fact, a lot of antidepressants that are prescribed by clinicians are giving the patient serotonin, providing serotonin to the brain. And in fact, people who said to me, oh, I don't want to go on antidepressants if I get diagnosed with depression, And I ask them why, and they go, oh, I don't want to walk around in a haze all day. Believe me, I've had the experience of taking serotonin, and it doesn't do that for you. What it does is increase the natural chemical levels of serotonin in your brain, so your brain starts to function as it normally would if it was not low on serotonin. Now, what can help us increase levels of serotonin is for us to think about past achievements. So maybe even take time out and think about, yes, well, okay, when I reflect over the last 3 months, 6 months, or even my whole life, what are some of the things I'm really proud of? What are some of the things I've done that even at the start I thought, oh, I don't think I can do that. Now, I'm also going to suggest that gratitude has long been cited as a major antidote, I should say, to depression. And again, as I say, I'm a believer in prevention being far more valuable than trying to cure something. So you can see here, I have my gratitude journal. And every day, could we stop and write down in our journal, what are the things we're grateful for today? And I know at the start, you can start feel like, oh, I'm saying the same thing over and over. Trust me, every day, as you practice a lot of these things together, more things will come into your mind. And when I talk about kindness towards others, look, it might be, I mean, there's some fabulous things people are doing now in our communities, like young children are making cards and writing letters to people in aged care homes so that they don't feel so alone. I know in my neighborhood, one person did a letterbox drop, say, here's my name, here's my phone number. If you can't get out and you need something from the chemist or the shops, please let me know. Now, I think she's had a few people take her up on that offer. But the point was, when she got back from doing that, she felt terrific. That act itself got serotonin flowing through her body. So think creatively about, how can I show some kindness to others at this time? And 20 minutes, even 20 minutes of sunshine, making sure you've got sunscreen on as well, but that can start to increase levels of serotonin. So when people are feeling in a low mood and it is suggested to them, I'll go and have a walk in the sunshine, there is actual physical, literal scientific evidence as to why this is so important. So that's our friend serotonin. What about oxytocin? Well, oxytocin is the chemical that strengthens relationship and solidifies trust. So, of course, with low levels of oxytocin in our body, we can have a feeling of lack of closeness or lack of intimacy. And I don't mean intimacy as in a one-to-one personal relationship. I'm talking about, for instance, the intimacy I share with Virginia, who I've known for years. What can we do to raise the oxytocin? Now, I know you may think this is a little left field, and I will say this really struck a chord for me when I read this research, because I live alone. And oh my goodness, I miss hugs. I miss a tap on the arm or a pat on the back, or I even miss handshakes, for goodness. Now, there was some research done in Iceland, of all people, and one of the forestry workers there promoted this research about how hugging a tree for 5 minutes, like close your eyes and literally be with the tree and allow yourself to sink into the groundingness of that tree, can do wonders. Now, I confess, the idea appeals to me. I have not done it yet, but I was sharing with Madison and Virginia before we came online that I'm going for a walk after this, and I'm going to a beautiful park, and there's lots of trees. So I'm going to give it a go, and you can pop an email to Virginia and say, hey, how did Sandy go with hugging that tree? And we'll let you know. Finally, another way to strengthen relationships and get your oxytocin going, remember birthdays. Maybe send small gifts in the mail. Now, I have a friend who has made a pledge to herself, because she knew it would help her mental health and well-being. She's sending 5 cards a day to people. Now, she has a lot of business contacts all across the world, but she sits down at some point in every day and sends 5 cards out to people. I think that's pretty awesome. So finally, endorphins. We've all heard about runners getting endorphin highs, etc. Endorphin is actually produced in the body, the response to pain and stress. So I guess, when I first read that research, I thought, oh, are those people who are running really in pain and everything? But the body is in some level of stress or being pushed to extend its limits. And so the endorphins come in. Now, endorphins are proven conclusively to relieve anxiety. And interestingly, we can increase endorphins, of course, by exercise, as I mentioned, but even laughter. Now, they did some research on this, and even if people in a queue going into a comedy show, even the expectation of laughter can start endorphins running in your body. So I highly recommend going to YouTube and searching for your favorite comedians and watch anything and everything you can. My personal favorite is Michael McIntyre. If you haven't seen him, try him out. He's very good. Now, the next one is going to be very good news, and some of you can be very excited about the first part of this next one. Dark chocolate. Dark chocolate will help produce endorphins in your body, as will spicy food. And the vanilla and lavender, I'm talking about aromatherapy. So getting some essential oils of pure lavender, or even vanilla essence like we use in baking. Those two scents will help produce endorphins in your body as well. So happy chemicals, worth knowing more about them. The key thing here, though, is really movement. When we start taking more oxygen into our body, happy chemicals start to move into the brain more readily. So exercise. Now, I've mentioned the fact that I go walking. I used to do a lot of swimming, which I don't now. For those of you that are into more hardcore workouts, oh my goodness, there are so many personal trainers and celebrities like Arnold Schwarzenegger and I don't know all the others who have free videos on YouTube. There's one gentleman in the UK who's live streaming at 9 o'clock their time, which isn't that helpful for us maybe, live streaming 5 days a week, workouts from his lounge room. Dance. I love dancing. I don't think I'm a particularly good dancer, but hey, you know that old saying, dance like no one's watching? Well, no one's watching me now in my home alone. So I'll put on some of my favorite music and just move around. It doesn't have to be any particular kind of dance, just movement. Your brain definitely works better and best when you're moving or when you have done significant movement. So I want to talk now about how to stay connected to others at work, aside from let's have a team meeting via Zoom. One of the things I'd suggest is that you make arrangements to have a coffee catch up with a person on Zoom or on Messenger video call or whatever platform you're using, and you put it in your diaries and you commit to it just like you would have if you were doing it in person. Another thing I'm working on is my languaging. You'll notice I talk about in person versus face to face. So we used to talk about face to face being in the physical environment, and online was this kind of stuff. Well, the thing is, we are face to face now. We can be face to face with people. So I call our former way being in person, and these virtual or face to face coffee breaks can be wonderful. There's also a concept called side-by-side working, which I mentioned on our session last week, where again, 2 people, 3 people, small group of people agree that, say, between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., 12 noon, they're going to all be on a Zoom call, but they're not going to talk. They're simply going to have the webcams on, and they're going to see out of the corner of their eye while they're working on other things, oh, there's 3 other people with me. It's like working in a meeting room in a physical building. Now, you don't have to agree to not talk for 2 hours or whatever it is. You can say, look, let's all go for it for the next 60 minutes, 1 hour, and then we'll all sort of take a break for 5 minutes and share what have we managed to tick off our list at that stage. But I think that side-by-side working is a terrific idea. Having a Friday happy hour can be wonderful. And have it, it doesn't have to be every Friday. It could be every second Friday. But again, Virginia and Madison and I were talking before we started about how important it is for us now to have something to look forward to. Right now we can't look forward to holidays. We can't look forward to going out to dinner on Saturday night. So let's start to look at how we can find things to look forward to. It might be a weekly social time. One of my clients, everyone in the office gets on a Zoom meeting at, I think, 12 o'clock on a Wednesday. Every Wednesday, 12 o'clock for 1 hour. They have lunch together. And the key is they don't talk about work and they don't talk about COVID-19 unless one of them says, look, I'm just, I'm really feeling down about what's going on at the moment. They share that sort of thing. But generally, I think they sort of started up this competition about who can bring in the best jokes or who can show the funniest memes that nobody else has seen. But having that weekly touch point with each other has really helped them stay connected together as a team, and they're doing awesome. And finally, you might want to get what I'd call an ISO buddy. It might be one person who also is working in isolation. And again, just schedule with whatever frequency you choose. I'd encourage you to make it face-to-face, but schedule a predictable, regular check-in with them where you spend 10, 15, 30, whatever amount of minutes works for you, just to say, how's it going? This is what I would call giving yourself permission to have decompression time. Decompression time is like, oh, I can actually kind of breathe now. I can actually relax a bit. I can just chat with my buddy about life or about the, replay of a footy match I watched on the weekend. So get some decompression time going. Now, in terms of staying connected to your friends and family, I've got a few ideas here for you. The first is having dinner together. Now, as weird as that sounds, I am hearing about more and more people who are doing exactly that. So they're all sitting down at the table, they log on to their platform, their video platform, and they all eat and chat, and some of them have started playing games like categories or Trivial Pursuit, and if it's not an online version of that, they're trusting the people who have the Trivial Pursuit game in front of them are not cheating, and they're, awarding answer a little slice of pie for the correct answers. But having dinner together can be an awesome thing to do. Personally, in my family, we're doing family Friday night karaoke. Now, how this all started was, I don't know, I think it was my first week in isolation, and my sister and her husband and their daughter all lived together. And my brother-in-law said, oh, we ought to call Sandy and see if she wants to have an online happy hour with us. And it was nice. It was lovely to see them. But all four of us sort of found that after about a half hour, we were struggling for topics to talk about. And so I said, hey, how about next week we try karaoke? Oh, I don't want to do that. They were all very resistant. I said, come on, let's just give it one go. Try before you sigh. Well, it's taken off like this. We're awarding a winner. We're dressing up. We're having a theme for every week. My son and his fiance have joined in. And even on the weekend, my son said to me, look, I don't know, once all the restrictions are lifted, that I'll want to do this every Friday night. But I'd like to do it at least once a month because it's really fun. So I trust from that example, you're getting that I really believe in trialing these things and finding what works for you. Another idea, of course, is I'm discovering that some of the strategy board games I love playing, like Carcassonne and Settlers of Catan, are available online, and some of them are free. Now, you've got to be patient with the internet speed and all that sort of stuff, but I've got a group of friends where we're playing Settlers of Catan probably 5 nights a week. We've got a group of us on Messenger, and someone who wants to play says, hey, anyone want a game tonight? And at least 1 or 2 other people will join in. So that's been fabulous. And what about all the online events that are available now? We can go to the zoo now. We can take tours of people's homes. We can go to concerts. We only have to Google online music, online plays or theater. And then when you find something you want to do, call your friend and say, hey, you want to go to such and such a concert on Saturday night? I'll see you there. I'm actually joking with a friend of mine saying, oh, okay, well, if I get there first, I'll save a seat near the bar. So ways to stay connected with your friends and family there. Now, I also want to talk to you about reality and possibility. You know, we tend to be looking at so much that's changed and, oh, I can't do, and I hear people saying, I can't do this anymore, I can't do that. While we keep thinking in that way, our brain loves patterns. So our brain is going to attach itself to the what can't I do pattern. And the negative side, you know, oh, this is really hard this way, or this is really boring this way. So I want to encourage you to look at, well, maybe what's the positive of that change that's occurred. I'm going to give you a couple of examples for me. I live in a flight path to Tullamarine Airport, and there are no planes. You know, when when I hear one, I run out and I look at it. It's, whoa, they still have planes. And the Mercy flights that are bringing people home from overseas. But I wake up in the morning, it's just like music. The birds are loving it. Now, I can't physically in person visit my sister and her family, but I am seeing them every Friday night. Guaranteed. Gives me something to look forward to every week. And I dare say, if I wasn't in COVID-19 isolation, I wouldn't be seeing her every week, and my brother-in-law and niece, who I love dearly. So it's quite a joy. I'm not doing any travel for work. I generally go travel interstate for, 2 or 3 days at a time, at least 2 or 3 times a month. So I have all this spare time now, because those of you who have ever traveled much for work, you know that it's rush to the airport and wait, get on the plane, wait, get off the plane, wait. There's a whole, the whole travel experience, even a Sydney to Melbourne journey takes 4 hours kind of thing. Well, there's lots of things I can do with all that extra time. So I encourage you to think about what's the upside of some of these changes we've been experiencing. So as I said, I wanted to spend a large amount of time talking with you about developing a personal mental health plan or a mental well-being plan. Again, there's going to be a lot of ideas here. Try before you sigh and consider what works for you. Because ultimately what this plan is to help you with is to recognize symptoms and signs that maybe you need a bit more self-care. Maybe you need to change your rhythm a little bit. Maybe it would be beneficial for you to reach out and talk to somebody, even a health professional, about some of the things you're experiencing. So your plan is going to include all of these things. You're going to identify triggers or stressors in your life. You'll be able to identify the warning signs, or what Beyond Blue likes to call your red flags. You'll be able to identify doable actions, specific actions. So for instance, I have my mental health plan here on my wall by my desk. And one of my signs is lack of focus. I seem to sort of bob from one thing to another. And my job and my responsibility is to notice that's what's happening for me. That's a red flag. And I look up and go, okay, what can I do about lack of focus? Oh, all right. Go out in the garden, and I have choices there. I have a list of 3 or 4 different things I could do to combat that or reduce that feeling in me. So you'll have similar doable actions. You're going to identify people who will support you or can support you during this time, and support resources. And I'll show you where on Beyond Blue, etc., that you can go. Let's talk about triggers and stressors. I mean, we have stressors in our life all the time. Pre-virus, during virus, we'll have them after virus. So some of your stressors may be at the moment in this working in isolation, just an influx of emails. Maybe there's short deadlines you're needing to meet. Maybe it's a lack of acknowledgement of, oh, thanks for doing that for me, or lack of feedback from people. It might be, and I know this has been a case for a few people I've talked with, that yes, they're grateful to still be employed, and the pace of the work has slowed down a lot, and they're not feeling very challenged. Even the time delays in getting information, and I talked about this last week's session, that can cause stress when you're doing your best to meet a deadline you've committed to. Now, those are simply examples of stressors or triggers that you might have. I encourage you to spend some time thinking about what yours are for you specifically. So Let's have a look at what warning signs or red flags might be. They come in a variety of forms, if you like. So the first group or category are things that are physical red flags. So it could be that you notice you're starting to feel a bit nauseous, or you've got knots in your stomach, or your heart rate might be going up, or a lot of more than normal tension in your neck and your shoulders. Again, you'll need to identify what your physical symptoms are. What about in terms of how you're thinking? Maybe you're finding it hard to concentrate or unable to focus, or you're finding it difficult to make decisions about something. Maybe you're finding it hard to prioritize your task list. What about changes in your behavior? So have your sleep patterns changed? Is it harder to get to sleep? Or is it harder to stay asleep? Or are you waking incredibly early in the morning? Has your appetite increased significantly or decreased significantly? Or have you noticed that you're eating a lot more sweet things than you used to? I know I am. So, and are you finding generally reduced pleasure in activities that you normally would enjoy quite a lot? So whether it's a hobby, whether it's talking with someone, whether it's playing a game, whether it's playing with your children, if you're noticing a reduced pleasure in those activities, that's a red flag. What about your feelings? Well, of course, if you're feeling sad and anxious regularly, I mean, we're all going to have a roller coaster of moods that we're going through at the moment. But it's taking time to reflect on, well, out of the past week, have I had more positive moods or more negative moods, more heavy or sad moods? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Like, you know, you've got a lot of things you need to do for work, a lot of things you are able to do for pleasure and relaxation time, but there's just seems so many choices. Again, it gets back to hard to make the decision. Or maybe you're normally a pretty good problem solver, but now you're finding it hard to weed through the sort the chaff from the wheat sort of thing. Feelings of being pressured, feeling like even though it's 5:30 or whatever time when you finish work, that even 2 or 3 hours later, your brain is still bouncing around with work-related issues. Or if during your work day, you notice you're not taking regular breaks, having any kind of family or social time, you're not, I mean, even at work, think about in the physical work world, how many times in a day, and this is not a bad thing, I'm just saying, notice the change though, you know, how many times in the day would we have gotten up and gone either to the men's or ladies' room or to the staff room to make a cup of tea, and we've bumped into someone and we just, oh, g'day, how you doing? And we've even had a 1-minute chat. There's so much of the rhythm of our lives that have changed right now and can cause these red flags or warning signs in terms of our mental well-being. And noticing your behavior with others, if you're feeling more argumentative or resentful than you normally would be, and are you finding yourself comparing yourself to others a lot? Particularly in terms of the impact of this situation on yourself. Look, I have always been a believer that everybody's got stuff happening in their life that is challenging all the time. Not all the time, but you know what I mean. At any point in time, there are countless people who are having to deal with challenges. And so particularly in this situation, even though I live alone and I feel that presents some unique challenges, I also know that if you were living with a couple of toddlers, man, that would, and now these parents who are working from home and trying to homeschool, it's useless to compare our situation with anyone else's right now. Everyone's going to have its upside and its not so good side. So that's giving you some examples of red flags or warning signs. You need to think about which of these or which other ones would apply to you. So what are some doable actions? Talk to someone, a trusted health professional. Now notice there I don't say GP, and I say that for specific reasons. Sometimes people don't have a regular, what am I trying to say? A long-term relationship with a GP. And so they don't really know a GP who knows them that well. You might have a naturopath that you've been seeing regularly for many years. Now, I'm not saying the naturopath necessarily will know exactly how to help you, but if they're a professional, I believe they will know where to point you in the right direction. So some health professional you trust, it could be a partner, a friend, a colleague, your manager, being able to identify someone that you feel you can talk with. Now, I'll give you some tips a little bit later on before we finish about how do you open up a conversation like that. Staying connected, and I've mentioned a lot of this already, diarize the virtual coffee or drinks. Make a commitment to make one phone call a day to support someone else and one phone call a day to actually get support from someone. Now, when I say support someone else, you don't necessarily know whether they're struggling or not, but I'll bet you anything. If you ring up and say, oh, g'day, we haven't spoken for a while and just wanted to touch base with you and see how you're doing, they will be thrilled. I know when I've had some calls like that, I go, oh, somebody's thought of me. It gets that serotonin level going, remember, and the oxytocin. And maybe you need to call someone every day to have some decompression time. And getting physical, commit to and promise yourself a minimum of 30 minutes every day. If you haven't tried meditation before, now's a great time. Now, I will confess, I used to say, oh, I'm not good at meditating because my mind has a mind of its own. And of course, whoever I was learning from would say, well, just allow it to be a cloud that floats away in the sky. And then the sky got so cloudy, I was sure it was going to rain. But I did find for me, there were activities that I could do that were meditative. For instance, I do a craft called cross-stitching. And when you do this tiny kind of stitching, it just totally absorbs your thinking. I also find if I sit and simply stare at a candle, a lit candle, not an unlit one, that's a bit boring. But if I look at a lit candle and just really focus on the flame and where's the blue bit and where's the yellow bit, and oh, there's a bit of green there now. That can be very meditative because what you're wanting to do is slow your adrenal glands down. Making sure you're getting up and stretch or take up a new hobby, reconnect with the lapsed one, doing something physical. What about starting to set boundaries for yourself? So stick to a routine, set work hours, stick to them. When my 25-year-old son first started working from home about 4 weeks ago, I called him at 5:30 and said, oh, happy end of your workday. And he goes, oh, is it? Like, how do you know you're done? And excuse me, I've been a home-based business for more than 30 years, and it's a discipline that we need to develop about this. But yeah, because there's always more to do. I won't get everything done from my to-do list today, but I need to give a commitment to myself that says when 5:30 comes around, I'm finished. And make sure if you have a dedicated work mobile phone, turn off the emails and the phone messages and calls. You need your personal time. You need your non-work time. It's very important to you right now. Stay aware. I'm going to suggest that when you've completed your mental health plan, post it where you will see it daily, like I have mine on my wall. Maybe even take a photo of it on your phone so you can refer to it if you're out, doing some shopping. And you might even want to send that photo to, or a scan or whatever, to a friend, to somebody close to you, to a couple of people close to you. I know I've done that with my plan. In fact, I have 2 colleagues who we have a commitment. Then in our messenger group, we post once a day just to say how we are. So we know when we go to bed at night, if we haven't heard from somebody, we're going to call them. So it's a good idea. And please, as I mentioned before, practice self-compassion. Treat and talk with yourself as you would treat and talk with a friend. Now is not the time to be hard on yourself. Now is not the time to say, right, I'm going to exercise an hour a day, 6 days a week, and by the end of this month, I'm going to be pressing X number of kilos. I didn't admirable goals, but that sounds pretty hard. In fact, when I first started my walking regime some 4 weeks ago, I remember in my head thinking, oh, I don't know if I really want to do this. And some of you might have heard me speak before where I talk about chunk for success, because the last thing you want to do is set yourself up for either lack of success or frustration or resentment and then demotivation. So the first day I set out for my walk, I said, okay, what's reasonable? I can do 30 minutes. All right, I'm going to do 30 minutes. And when I'm done, I'm going to pat myself on the back and I'm going to increase my time by 10% every time I come out to walk. So pretty soon I was up to an hour. And now I know I do over an hour because I have the timer on my phone and it goes off and I'm still 10, 15 minutes away from my car. But some days when I go out, I go, gee, it's just hard today. I'm finding it hard to be that motivated about this walking thing. So I won't turn the timer on. I'll just walk as long as I feel I can. And I forgive myself for that. Check your daily tasks. Tasks are practical, aim to do well, not be perfect. I trust all of that gives you some idea of what I mean about practicing self-compassion. So you'll remember another component of your mental health plan is to have identified people who can support you. So family members, friends, health professionals. Look, and I'm not being silly by saying your accountant. You know, all of us might be quite worried about finances right now, about our super fund, which, by the way, I urge you not to check your balances on because it's out of our control right now. But maybe even just calling your accountant and you know, having a talk with them about how your budget's going or how you can maximize your tax deductibles this year. It could be an industry association you belong to. I belong to several nearby networks, and being able to reach out to those people is invaluable to me. For some of you, it might be a church or a religious leader of some sort. It could be your local council. I'm starting to see more and more local councils saying, hey, call us if you just need to talk, which I think is awesome. So identify, let me just see, was there another one? No, there wasn't another one there. So identify the people that you can reach out to. Now I'm going to share with you, let me see how many I've got, 4 specific resources that could be beneficial to you right now. And believe me, this is not an exhaustive list. And I'm not showing you these 4 because I think they're better. I'm showing you these 4 because they're the ones I'm most familiar with. The first one is specifically related to organizations. So I know there's some people on this session today who are from, have come in a group from a company. Headsup.org.au is full, and you can see from the screen snapshot on the home page there, obviously they've highlighted special help during the coronavirus outbreak, but towards the bottom you can see you can click on go into areas that are specifically for employers, employees, managers, or small business. So it is more of a business focus there, but definitely still all about mental health and well-being. It's the result of a tripartite alliance, I should say, between government, mental health organizations like Beyond Blue, and business. So it's a vault of information for you there. And of course, you may have heard of Black Dog Institute. They aren't as active in terms of immediate support or phone support, but they have huge resources there if you like to read more about signs and symptoms and practices to keep you well. And every site you go to, of course, there's a highlight of, especially for during COVID-19. Beyond Blue is the organization closest to my heart in that I do occasionally work on their behalf on contract. I'm part of their Volunteer Speakers Bureau, and I think they do awesome work. And again, this is a site, if you go to beyondblue.org.au, on their homepage is a big banner saying specialist support during coronavirus. Now, the screen snapshot I'm showing you there is from that website, but it's got a more complex URL, so I didn't want to share that with you. Just beyondblue.org.au will take you there. And you can see there's headings, I need support now, I have coronavirus, I'm impacted, my work is impacted, I need help managing my daily life, or I'm supporting someone else. So again, very great resource. Please make note of their support line, just like Lifeline, which will be my next slide. This is a 24/7 support line. Absolutely skilled, trained, qualified people on this line. And you can call them and talk about how you might be struggling, or you might actually call, which is something I did about a week ago, to get some ideas about how to help a friend of mine who I believe is really struggling. And she keeps telling me, I'm okay, I'm okay. So I've got her permission to continue to check in with her every couple of days, but I called Beyond Blue to find out what else I might be able to do. And then, of course, there's Lifeline, who are well known for their support. So they have been around longer than Beyond Blue, if you like. Definitely initially and set up and primarily focused on suicide prevention, and all of these support lines will help anybody with anything you might call about. So notice again the mention of our current situation. So with all of that in mind, what might your mental health plan look like? I suggest it be 2 pages and no more. So on page 1, evenly distributed down your page, I would suggest at the top of the page you identify the stressors or triggers that you have at the moment, and also your warning signs or red flags. Now, below those, in terms of your stressors, if too many emails is a stressor to you right now, maybe it's turning off the notifications when they arrive. Maybe it's only checking emails a certain number of times a day. Maybe it's communicating with some people about, could you pick up the phone and call me rather than email me? Sometimes because I'm finding it stressful to have so many emails flooding my inbox. Maybe you subscribe to a lot of informative, useful, potentially useful newsletters and stuff. And at the moment, with all the flood of emails, they're just a little bit more than you need. Unsubscribe. You can always subscribe to them again later. So those would be the actions that I would put, if you like. If I just get my highlighter up here. There we go. If I have that. So if I, no, I'll grab, this is the one I wanted. So if I have a stressor up here that says too many emails, action to take, unsubscribe from lists. Oh, and I didn't want to go to the next screen. So that would be your first page. Your second page would simply be that list of people and resources that you can call on for support. I would encourage you to be very thorough in this. And when I say thorough, if I've identified that my friend Virginia is someone I could call if I needed help, I'm going to not only have her name there, but I'm going to have her phone number there as well. Because I don't know what the future will bring, but I do know I want to make my life as simple and easy as I possibly can right now. So to be able to simply look there, see her name, see her number, pick up my phone, off I go, that's going to be a great support to me. So that's your mental health plan. I'm looking forward to any questions that have been coming through, which I'll just about finish, and I'll check in with Madison and see what we've got. But I do also want to talk with you about how to ask for help. And the first thing I'd say about asking for help is to be brave. If I can get my screen going there. I know it can leave us feeling vulnerable. We all like to feel like we're coping. We all like to communicate to others that we're coping. But I think sometimes we have done this for so long and we've done it so well, we've ended up with a mask on our face. And that mask says, yep, I'm all right. I'm coping. Yep, everything's good. And believe you me, if things aren't good, now is the time to be brave. I speak from experience. When I was diagnosed with postnatal depression some 25 years ago, I told the doctor, oh no, well look, thanks for your idea, but I know I'm just tired. And off I went. And my depression got worse and worse and worse, to the point that I was hospitalized for 4 months. Now, I don't want anybody I ever speak to go through that experience. There's no doubt in my mind, if I'd listened to my first diagnosis and taken action at that time, my recovery would have been pretty seamless and pretty quick. So let's take off our mask and let's be brave and learn how to say things like, I'm finding it hard right now, or I've never really experienced this before, or even this one. I'd really appreciate your help. If I could just talk and if you could just listen. I don't expect you to have answers or know how to fix it for me. I just need to feel like I can get this off my chest. Using whatever words work for you, whatever words are natural for you. If you actually say to the person, hey, I just need you to listen and I don't need answers or suggestions, they might actually feel relieved. Because sometimes that's the thing people worry about, and because we all want to be helpful. We all want to give you a couple of ideas about, oh, you know, have you tried this or have you tried that? But I can assure you, if somebody is to the point of asking for help, which is a very brave thing to do, if somebody has come to you and said any of these things, the first thing you can do is say, thank you for trusting me. I really acknowledge your bravery. And yeah, I'd be happy just to listen. Wow, what a gift. What a gift you would be giving them. So I will say one more thing before we open up for questions. Those that were on the line last week know that I like to talk about this. Oh dear, I'm very sorry. I'm pushing buttons way too fast, sharing my screen, getting so excited because we're near the end here. All right, now I need to start my screen sharing again. Here we go. All right. Now, just a thumbs up. Madison, is that on your screen properly?
Yep, can see it.
There we go. Thank you. I was getting very excited. Saying that there's power in knowledge it's really not true, because I have the knowledge that if I eat less sweet things like the biscuits and Easter buns that I'm munching on, I'd lose a couple of kilos, which is something I'd like to do. And I've got the very powerful knowledge that if I exercised more often, that, you know, my fitness would improve. And really powerful knowledge that if I maybe cut down on my alcohol consumption, my overall health might improve. So with that really powerful knowledge in my head, you know what I'm going to do tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Sit down in front of the television, open up a bottle of red and eat some chips. I'm like, well, look at that. This knowledge is powerful. There went another couple of kilos. I hope you're chuckling, because if you're chuckling, it tells me you understand. There's no power in knowledge. There's power only in the actions you take based on the knowledge you have. And I trust today's session has given you a lot more knowledge, a lot of ideas, a lot of practical, doable strategies, so that you can take preventative measures and share this information with your loved ones and people you care about, so that you can all truly stay well, both physically and mentally, for forever. I thank you so much for being here today, and I am happy to stay online as long as I need to make sure we answer all the questions that may have come in. So thank you.
Thanks, Sandi. We haven't had any questions come through on the Q&A yet, so if anyone had anything they'd like to ask, feel free to send it through on that, or alternatively on the chat if you'd like. But I guess I just have one for you, Sandi. I know you mentioned about being in the moment and focusing on now. And I think at the moment, a lot of people, what we all have in common is the unknown and not knowing what's next, which I think for a lot of people is quite nervy. So I just wondered if you had any tips on, you know, dealing with the unknown and preparing for the unknown.
I would literally make that list of what am I concerned about, and what do I find myself thinking about a lot, and what can I actually control?
Yeah.
And it's going to take practice. I mean, I know sometimes in my in-person workshops, people have ask me a question like that, and I've given an answer, and they go, "Oh, how do you do that so quickly?" And I go, "I am blessed. Everything I talk about, and well, my job is this, right? So it's always on my mind, and I'm always talking about what I need to practice myself. And so I don't mean to make it sound simple or easy or straightforward. I absolutely know, though, it can become second nature. So the more we go, okay, these are the things I'm concerned about, as soon as we notice them popping into our head, then just say, stop, out of my control, out of my control. One of my girlfriends called me the other day and she said, "You taught me about not my circus, not my monkeys, didn't you?" And I said, "Did I? I don't know." And anyway, it fundamentally, I taught her about what I'm concerned about, what I can control. And she said, "Oh, I must have made that saying up. Not my circus, not my monkeys." So that's a good idea, though. Maybe you make up a funny little saying you say to yourself when these concerns pop into your head. One of the things I do is literally, and this is where some of the people on the line, if you know me well, you'll know that I am quite sane. And if you don't know me well, trust me, it's okay. But I'll say, if I have this worry in my head, I'll go, "You go over there and sit down and shut up. I might deal with you later." And the mere fact that I've said something, I've moved my body, I've moved my eye contact and pointed, these are all things that affect our neurology. I have qualifications in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. So I understand a lot about the mind-body connection and how often, to get more control of what's going on up here, we need to do things with our body, as in turn our head, point that direction, and it works.
That's great, thank you. We've just had an anonymous question come through. And they say, "Do you have any tips for reaching out to people and asking for help without feeling like a burden?"
So it's someone who wants to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that, because I know that's one of my biggest fears at times when I know I need some extra support. And simply saying it, look, I'm really keen to ensure that I'm not a burden to you, and I need help, right? And I'm struggling, and I need somebody to talk to. Notice the word I'm saying here is "and," because often we use the word "but," which makes the person forget what we just said. Like, "Oh, I really like your dress today, but," and we go, "Oh, what are they going to tell me now that they don't like?" So, and look, you say to the person, "I really need to trust you with something. I need to trust, and I want you to promise me that if you feel my contact with you does become a burden, you'll tell me."
Great.
Yeah. And the final thing I'd say about that is, that's one of the reasons why too it's important to have a range of people who you've identified as your support crew, because then you can spread the love, so to speak, that you will know yourself that you're not calling or contacting the same person every time necessarily. You can even, with a person that you've asked for support from, you can even say, "I'd love to have a conversation about what would help me and what would still be workable for you and not a burden to you." So, the frequency of the contact, the duration of the contact, the form of the contact. I'd like to hear from you what would be manageable for you.
That's great.
Thanks.
Terrific.
Just one more quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have time for one more? So this is just a question about working parents who have their kids taking school from home, and if you had any particular suggestions how they can be productive and engage the kids, and then I guess also while looking after their own mental well-being.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. And a lot depends on the age of the children. I shared some tips on LinkedIn before Easter, how to spend 4 days together and stay sane, or not, not blow up at each other. And one of the tips I have for families, which relates to this question, is sit down and together negotiate areas of the home and times that will be spent where by whom. So kids doing their schooling from home, ideally they have their own desk, or you could have 2 or 3 kids at the one table. But you need to talk with them about, again, I love having the conversations about what will work for you and what will work for me, and can we come up with what will work for us. So one of the things I know, particularly about the younger kids, is they really need some structure. And their attention span may seem a lot shorter now than that would in a classroom kind of environment. So maybe it's about, right, you know, we agree to this general schedule during the day. You know, mum and dad are doing this and you kids are doing that, and we're going to get together at 10:30 and have afternoon tea or recess where we, you know, throw the bowl around to each other out in the garden. And then at nights and weekends, extend that agreement to, for instance, again, depending on the ages of the children, everyone in the home can say, well, look, I'd like an hour of watching TV on my own because I want to watch the shows I want to watch on Wednesday night. And maybe everyone in the home gets a shot at, you know, some private TV time or private music listening time or whatever it might be. That I think can be useful.
That's terrific. Have we exhausted the questions, Maddie? Yeah. Right. So, Sandi, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Okay.
Yeah, terrific. Look, another very enlightening session, and I've taken heaps of notes here, lots of strategies, and looking forward to putting those in place. So I really appreciate all of that. On behalf of everybody who's participated, I think we've still got 14 people there. So thank you so much. We are running another session on a slightly different topic next week, which is on the successful communication and marketing up into China. So it's a very different topic, but we'll be promoting that. So Sandi, you might like to listen to that one if you've got any desire to spread your wings overseas. But thank you again so very, very much. We look forward to keeping in touch and hearing how you're going. And obviously we can all reach out to Sandi if we need some further advice, or check out her LinkedIn site. So thank you so much, Sandi. We will certainly be in touch.
Thank you for having me, and stay well, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.